Well, I think the people, not even only in the Japanese community, but I think in all the other communities, get to know the story of what happened to us. And I also like to expand more, and that the people will then have an understanding and knowledge of what happened to the other groups. And even starting from the time of the white Europeans coming into America and pushing out the Native Americans. And so you can go through that, and you see that has happened to each group in a generation, and as time went on. And then today, we have one of the big problems is that we have people coming into the United States as legal immigrants and also illegal immigrants. And in turn, that is the kind of a thing that the general public not understanding, and so they virtually are, should I say, making it harder for the new for the people coming in. And one thing I always like to tell the various people I speak to, and mostly the white Caucasians, is you were also, came up as an immigrant into this country. And that is something that most of them don't even realize that that's where they're coming from. That the fact that it happened to us at that particular time was basically due to racial prejudice and greed, and finally the failure of the government. So that's why we're always pushing for that. To me, I was only 16 years old at that time. And so all of this was completely new. I didn't understand what was going on. But then in my later readings, I found that what had happened to the Japanese on the West Coast, something that the white, especially the white farmers, were trying to do for over 50 years. And when the Japanese first came into, or even the Chinese, excuse me, came to work in the United States, and once the job was finished, the Chinese was completing the transcontinental railroad, they wouldn't permit them to start the business. And that was the same thing with the Japanese. And so you look at the history for 50 years up to until 1941, there were laws preventing them. 1924, they passed, I think, I can't remember the exact title, but like an Alien Exclusion Act. And so they now excluded the Japanese from coming in. So you see all this going on, and then at the same time, the white farmers were pressing hard to keep the Japanese out. Pearl Harbor came. Oh, it's a great chance now to then kick us out. Yeah. And so that's what happened. And so then we went into the camps. And the interesting thing in numbers, there were about 120,000 of us, men, adults and children, into the concentration camp. And that's where they sort of, I say, propagandas, and said that we're going to put you into the places where you'll be safe. Okay, and so they were using things like that, and it was sometime later. I said, "No, that's a bunch of lies." So anyway, so that's how we ended up in the camps. Yeah. Oh, I was 16, and I was also a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
And so I call it, it's another adventure, going to someplace. But, actually I had very little fears one way or the other. It was just an event that was happening to us. And as I said, the government did everything, so, but we didn't know where we were going and what was going to happen to us. I guess the reaction among the people when we arrived at Heart Mountain, and my sisters said, oh, they complained it was hot and it was dusty, but I looked out there and it was just, Wyoming, no houses or anything except for the camp. And the wood that they used would shrink. And so you see cracks in the floor, cracks in the wall, but then the floor was the worst part. And when the wind and the dust blew, the dust would blow into the building, and plus even through the loose windows. And so you have a film of dust over everything. Well, the war, was going on in Europe, and the 100th and the 442nd in Europe were fighting, and my interpretation of what had happened was that they had a very high casualty rate, you see, and they're one of the most, or was the most highly decorated outfit in the time of war, in the short time that they were in existence. And so they needed replacements. And so they passed out the questionnaires, and I forgot how many questions were, but among the questions was 27 and 28 to not be, or at least anything to do with the Emperor of Japan. So in that case here, I said, well, that would be no particular problem for me. So I entered yes. So anyway, I got my draft card, and the draft card out there said 4C, which was enemy alien. I'm a U.S. citizen. I registered for the Selective Service. I get a card back and says I'm an alien. So anyway, I said, well, okay, I'm an alien. But then in turn, what I just spoke of earlier, the Army now needed replacements. The volunteer program wasn't working, so they changed my 4C status to 1A. No questioning asked, nothing, just arbitrarily changed it over. Oh, heck, if we had all the rights and privileges of the other people, and we were then, the family was released from the concentration camp, and we were able to go back, to where we originally came from. So I would gladly serve, So that didn't help, So anyway, so that was the situation on that draft part, and then in a few weeks later, I can't get back to the time there, but I got my notice to report for my physical, and I said, well, I'm just not going. And working at the engineering department, the people heard that I refused to go to the physical, and one of the other co-workers came up to me later on and said, well, I didn't think it was a very good idea that I keep working. So I said, well, why not? And he said that one of the Caucasian employee's son was killed in the war. So I said, well, okay, that didn't want to aggravate that. So I just quit working. And I guess a week or so later, or maybe a few weeks later, the marshals appeared at the door early in the morning at the barrack and arrested me. And so now I ended up in the custody to do, well, basically that split the camp.
Okay.
And so those who then served in the army with one side, and then people like me who then refused, it split the camp, and in fact, it split the Japanese population. And there's still, even today, all the time later, there's still differences, and especially, I'm the youngest one, so, say, much earlier, those who served in the army resented the fact that we didn't go. But then as time went on, they began to realize what we were trying to do. The veterans group and so on, in Hawaii, they were the first group to actually acknowledge the fact that we were now really going for the civil rights. And in fact, in some cases, some of the others had joined us, but time went on that more and more people began to realize what we were trying to do instead of just being a draft dodger.
Yeah.
And so ended up in the county jail with a whole bunch of the other guys who were refusing to go to the physical exam. And then finally, when it was culminated with 63 of us, okay,
Is that just
from Heart Mountain. That so to me that was kind of a surprise that there were so many others that were thinking the same way that I was thinking. Yeah, I don't know why, it just flashed in my mind that 50 years from now, this picture being taken might be significant, yeah. And I guess I was right. Well, no, I don't think so. Because we later found out that this judge was a racist, and it turned out that I think one of the first day or so, he called us Jap boys. They started the use of that. And so the word was that, well, we probably wouldn't be getting a fair trial. And we selected away from a jury trial because we thought that at that time it would be very hard to find 12 jurors who would be show at least some sympathy or be partial to us. And we got a 3-year sentence. Apparently, Truman then on the Christmas party pardoned all the draft resistors. Now, well, that was kind of nice. I'm trying to think now. 46. Yeah, war was over 45. We were in the prison until some of us were released in July of 46. What year was that? 53, yeah. When I got my second draft notice. And so I hadn't quite finished it, so I asked the draft force as well, can you deal it so I could get my degree? And they said, yeah, fine. So I had my master's degree, and then I served in the Army. So spent the rest of my time, 2 years in the Army in Fort Hood, Texas, as a medic, and picked up a few things about being a medic at the hospital. Well, I'm afraid that we're not pushing or publicizing that probably will be happening. It seems to be the trait of human beings. Yeah. So try to bring that, point this out. I think war is just a terrible thing. And try to avoid that. Well, for those say that, like in the West Coast, well, there was, I think, a very traumatic event, but somehow, and I guess maybe with the kind of training that we got, and even for our parents, things worked out. And as it is now, the Japanese Americans are, I think, doing okay, and we don't. So I would say again, I always wonder, so what is the characteristics of that? What is the training? Yeah. And maybe it's the old, what I call the Japanese trait of gaman. Yeah. Recovered very well. Yeah.